money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Throughout Earth's history, hemp has been used, no mystery. Hemp was legal to pay your taxes for more than a century. Check your faxes, the founding fathers make sense to me. It's time to grow hemp legally. It's time for him. Sustainable green industry, that's our intent. A better place this world will be, it's time for him. Fuel and food and clothes and soap, housing, cars, yeah, car no joke. Henry Ford built a car out of hemp, it's time for us to do it again. People be employed with balanced farming as it's meant. Right now, it's time hemp. Hemp is a true necessity for the wealth and protection of this country. Thomas Jefferson spoke those words, he knew the value of these herds. It's time to lift the hemp ban. It's time to make a strong stand. Yes, we can, I know we can. We can make a difference. Yes, we can. Just like birds of a feather, we can work together and lift the hemp ban. That they've spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, time for hemp.
You are listening to Time for Hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. Thank you for tuning in to the big broadcast today. As always, we are putting a spotlight on the amazing plant known as cannabis hemp. And we're also going to put a spotlight on how you can flex your rights. So you might want to tune in so you know how to avoid complications with the police. Maybe this little segment will help feed your brain with some information that will be a benefit to you down the road. And we're also going to be talking about the endocannabinoid system that is so wonderfully touched by the THC and all the other amazing chemicals that are found in cannabis. And we would encourage you to share this with your friends. You can go to timeforhemp.news and find all of the past programs that have broadcast here. And you can download them for free. Lots of other podcasts to download for free. We also have a lot of music about how wonderful cannabis is that you can what? You got it. Download for free. We got videos you can share with friends, and of course, we do a blog where we post information about this wonderful plant, again known as cannabis hemp. Well, before we get too far down the road in today's broadcast, as always, I want to bring to you some new tunes. And this new tune is about going to a gathering with family and friends and enjoying cannabis brownies and enjoying edibles and enjoying THC, hot tea, and iced tea. And what a wonderful way it is to add this plant to your body, and how we can put some bounce in your ounce, which, by the way, that's the name of the song, A Happy Bounce in Every Ounce, here at Time for Hemp.
I had a Monday feeling droopy, like my spark was on the shelf. Until I ate a hemp boiled muffin, I was glad to help myself. It got my heartbeat doing cartwheels and put my mood in retrochrome. Was like my bloodstream found a jukebox and decided to take it home. Then my cousin baked a platter full of CBD eclairs and told me they'd help keep me calm and put pep back in my gears. One small bite and suddenly all my worries hit the road, and my pulse got a new suspension and my grin was in overload. There's a happy bounce in each green ounce, a little lift to improve our pounds. From the hemp world treats to the smoky rounds, we turn plain days into playgrounds. Gather close, let the laughter mount. Love grows loud when the joy's pronounced. Yeah, life feels brighter when we all announce there's a happy bounce in every ounce. My brother showed up with brownies, each one a hot, smart, tasty square, full of omegas, CBDs, and goodness much like a wellness county fair. I took a nibble and felt my shoulders drop their tension fast as rain. My bloodstream was now a good stream of good things that helps ease pain. My sister lit up a fatty and passed it around with ease and grace, while the room turned warm and golden like a trumpet's copper face. Every chuckle hit in stereo, every story found its groove, like the cannabis conducted us and told our hearts to move. There's a happy bounce in each green ounce, a little lift to improve our pounds. From the hemp oil treats to the smoky rounds, we turn plain days into playground. Gather close, let the laughter mount. Love grows loud when the joy's pronounced. Yeah, life feels brighter when we all announce there's a happy bounce in every ounce. Neighbors brought confections with that THC kiss finesse. The mellow treats were a perfect way to end the day and slowly decompress. Soon the whole room felt like velvet, every heartbeat in a glide, like the floorboards learned to two-step and invited us to slide. So here's a toast to hemp and cannabis, the foods that help us shine, to the circles, chats, and chuckles that make ordinary days divine, to the love that grows in moments when we simply pass the spark. Yeah, the plant that keeps us dancing till the sun clocks out for dark. There's a happy bounce in each green ounce, a little lift to improve our pounds. From the hemp oil treats to the smoky rounds, we turn plain days into let the laughter mount. Love grows loud when the joy's pronounced. Yeah, life feels brighter when we all announce there's a happy bounce in every ounce. In every ounce.
Hi, I'm Scott Morgan with Flex Your Rights. I want to talk for a few minutes about an article I had published in Huffington Post recently called 5 Reasons You Should Never Agree to a Police Search, Even If You Have Nothing to Hide. Being approached by an officer on the street or pulled over in your vehicle or approached at your doorstep and asked to consent to a search is one of the most typical situations that can happen, and the consequences can be really, really severe. So I think it's important that people understand some of the very good reasons that you should think twice before ever giving a police officer permission to search you or your things. The first one is that it's your constitutional right. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that police need probable cause or a warrant to search you or your belongings. Unless they have probable cause or a warrant, the only way they can search is if you say, sure, fine, go ahead and search me. So why would you do that? The officer is looking for evidence to get you in trouble. That's the only thing they're trying to do. They're not trying to help you find your car keys. So giving them permission to search you makes no sense at all. The officer is an investigator, and their job is to find evidence and arrest criminals, and that's where their authority comes from. They don't have the authority to give orders to innocent people. So if they don't already have a reason to suspect you of a crime, they have no authority and no reason to be bothering you. They can't tell you to do jumping jacks or show them your boobies, and they can't tell you to empty your pockets if they don't have a good, valid legal reason to do so. So it's not your obligation to just go along with any orders that they give you. They're not in charge of you. You're actually their boss. So, and they're here to help us. So we don't have to voluntarily let police officers dig through our things, and it's absurd to think that we would have to do that, and absurd to think that you have any interest in helping somebody investigate you whose only goal is to put you in jail for a crime. Now, the second reason, and this is a really important one where a lot of people get confused, is that refusing a search actually protects you if you end up in court as a result of a police search. Now, a lot of people point out, and this is true, that when you refuse consent to a police search, it's common for police to go ahead and search you anyway. And the reason that happens is that the officer could claim that they have probable cause for some other reason and go ahead and proceed with the search and then try to argue it out in court. Now, this happens all the time, but it's very important that you make it clear to the officer that you're not agreeing to that search. As long as you consistently said no to the search, even though the officer went ahead and did it anyway, even if they found, a bag of marijuana or something else in your car, that doesn't matter necessarily, because when you get into court, what your lawyer will do is argue that the officer didn't actually have legal grounds to perform that search. And your saying no to the search doesn't count as legal grounds to suspect you of a crime. And so it's very, very common for defense attorneys to actually win these cases. And we've discussed this with expert lawyers all over the country, and it happens every single day. And the lawyer makes what's called a motion to suppress, and they make the case that the evidence was gathered illegally, and the judge will then throw it out of court. It's not guaranteed to happen, but it's a common outcome that's only possible if you say no to the police search and assert your constitutional rights. And so what people get tripped up on is, well, if they're going to search me anyway, what's the point of refusing consent? The reason you refuse consent is because you can then get the evidence thrown out in court. And this is also true if there isn't anything found in your vehicle, but if you want to file a complaint or sue the police for harassment, obviously you can't say that they were harassing you if you gave them verbal permission to go digging around around in your things. And so saying no is critical to establishing your legal standing to challenge the evidence and challenge the officer's actions. And so that's really important to understand. The third reason you should never agree to a police search is that saying no can in fact prevent a search altogether. Yes, it's true that police will sometimes search you without your permission, but it's also true that they often won't. These are what we think of as sort of fishing expeditions in many cases, where the officer, maybe they don't like the way you look or the neighborhood you're in, or maybe they just have a quota to fill and they're trying to make as many busts as they can. They will go up and ask people to search through your bag or your car for no reason. It happens all the time, all over the country. And so when you say no, when you show that you know your rights, suddenly this isn't, obviously not going to be such an easy bust for them to make, So it's common for police officers to actually back off when they realize that they don't have the legal authority to proceed, because why go to all the trouble of digging through all your things only to get the evidence thrown out in court? A fourth reason why you should never consent to a police search is that searches can waste your time and damage your property. When you agree to a police search, you're agreeing to sit there while a stranger digs through all of your things for potentially very long time. A search on the side of the highway can take half an hour, 45 minutes, and if anything's broken, then you're responsible for the damage because you agreed to let these people mess around with all of your things. So, unless you want to have all of that happen, it really doesn't make sense to go ahead and give them permission to do it. The fifth reason you should never agree to a police search, and this is one that a lot of people don't even think of, is how can you really be sure that there's nothing anywhere in your vehicle that could get you in trouble? I mean, unless you bought the car new and you're the only person that's ever been in it and you know that you've never had anything illegal in the vehicle, it's really hard to be certain. I mean, you've probably given rides to a number of people. You never know what could have fallen out of somebody's pocket, or if you have passengers in the vehicle when you're pulled over, that's a concern too. And we hear about situations where a passenger sees the lights flashing behind them and they go and stick something under the seat, thinking about their own interests and not yours. And then it's also possible, if you're driving a used vehicle, that you don't know what the previous owner might have used the vehicle for. There can be hidden compartments deep inside your car that you don't even know about. And police are looking very thoroughly, more thoroughly through the vehicle than you might ever have. So the outcome of those searches could be very serious for you. And it's only because you waived your rights and gave the police officer permission that you're fully on the hook for whatever they find. And believe me, try telling an officer that something illegal doesn't belong to you. I didn't know it was there. They hear that all day, every day. So even if you're completely innocent, you can really get yourself in a lot of trouble by naively assuming that the police officer has your best interests in mind and that being honest and cooperative is going to work out well for you. Our prisons are just filled with people who assumed that. And, this isn't to say that we need to have a disrespectful attitude about police. That's really not it at all. The officer is just doing their job, by trying to investigate crimes. But you're doing your job as a citizen by asserting your constitutional rights. And so that's really what this comes down to. What do you do if police say they smell marijuana? And this is actually a really tough question, and for reasons that I'll get into, it's something that you might want to learn more about, even if you don't actually use marijuana. The truth is that you don't have a lot of options in this situation, but let me break it down for you, and I'll just try to be as helpful as I can. The reason this is such a big issue is that the smell of marijuana by itself is considered probable cause to believe there's a crime going on. So as long as police smell it or claim that they smell it, in most situations they can automatically search you. And unfortunately, the courts trust police officers to be honest about this, which creates all sorts of problems. And that's why it's something that can affect you whether or not you're a marijuana user. The smell of marijuana is something that the officer might bring up as an issue to sort of manufacture probable cause after you've refused to search. And so that's why it's a big deal. And so let's talk about some of the ways that you can protect yourself from having this happen to you. First and foremost, we want to eliminate the possibility that you're actually running around reeking of marijuana. Believe it or not, a lot of police officers aren't liars, and they aren't going to just say that they smell pot if they don't. So most of the time when an officer claims that they smell marijuana, it's because they actually smell it, and that's the reason that they think there's something going on. That's why they want to search. So first of all, we have to eliminate that factor, and that's going to reduce your odds of getting jammed up considerably. Above all, this means that you aren't ever smoking marijuana in your car. Smoking in the car is just the best and most efficient way in the world to get arrested for marijuana. We get emails at Flex Your Rights every day from people who got in trouble, and 9 times out of 10 it had something to do with smoking in or around a vehicle. That's just the number one way that it happens in my experience, and there's no reason for it. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're so impatient that you can't, drive for 30 minutes without sparking something, well, then you're going to hate being subjected to a weekly urinalysis when you're on probation after getting busted, inevitably. So cool it with that for your own good, please. And beyond that, if there's anything in your car that might smell like marijuana, for example, a bag of it or an apparatus or what have you, keep that stuff stored away and sealed up. Better yet, keep it out of the car. It really shouldn't be there. Unfortunately, making sure your car doesn't smell like marijuana might not be enough. It's really just the beginning. If the officer becomes really suspicious of you, they can lie or just imagine it, even when it isn't there. And for you, that can be just as bad as the real thing, because it means that they now believe they have probable cause to go ahead and search the vehicle, or at least that's what they're claiming. Another important thing is just to make sure that you keep your car clean in general, because when police see a dirty car, they think of drugs. So if your car is clean, the officer is just a lot less likely to even start with you. And again, this is a preventative measure, but it's important. It really does make a difference. Along these same lines, remember that police profile like crazy. So if you're running around looking super cool all the time, they're going to notice you. I would never recommend that you tone down your style. It's a free country, and you shouldn't be afraid to be yourself and be awesome. But also just be aware that if you have a distinctive look or a flashy vehicle, it just means you're more likely to get harassed. It's bullshit, but be ready for it. I get emails all the time from biker dudes and people like that who don't even do drugs, but are getting pulled over and harassed and searched by police all the time for dope. It's just a dumb stereotype, but it's also the reality of how our laws are enforced, particularly under the war on drugs. Think about what you have with you, for example. If you do fit a profile, or if you have a history of getting harassed by police, you factor that into your decision making about whether to make yourself vulnerable to a criminal arrest. Now, the last thing, and this is perhaps the most important point of all, is that you always want to assert your rights no matter what. Keep in mind that when police say, for example, that they smell marijuana, it might just be a trick. They might just be trying to judge your reaction or scare you, and they're looking for sort of these verbal or nonverbal, cues from you, your eyes darting around or your breathing heating up, and these kinds of things that police officers deliberately try to provoke you to create those reactions when they're suspicious. It may not be their intention to do a full search of the vehicle unless you give off some sign of guilt. And so things like making references to marijuana, you look stoned, you smell like pot, these things could just be a trick. And so you don't want to panic at that point and waive your rights. You always want to refuse the search. If they're asking to search the vehicle, you always want to say no. And if they're claiming to smell marijuana, you want to respond the way that an innocent person would respond. And hopefully you are innocent because you haven't been smoking pot in your car. So you say, officer, I don't smell anything. Or, officer, whatever you're smelling, it didn't come from in here. It may or may not stop them, but it gives you a better chance of getting out of the encounter. And most importantly, if you do flex your rights and ultimately you're searched illegally, if you're arrested as a result of illegally obtained evidence, all of these things can be challenged in a court of law. Now, probable cause derived by something like marijuana odor is hard to disprove in court. It's very hard. But an officer who, for example, would make a claim like that dishonestly, may very well have a track record of making the same claim every time they pull somebody over and the search is refused. And so you got to keep in mind that there's a track record here, and a good attorney can get in there in a court of law and maybe even win your case. So don't give up. That's the important thing, is to sort of be prepared for all of these possible outcomes. And this is a particularly tricky situation, and one that sort of lends itself to a little bit of corruption and dishonesty on the part of police officers. But if you're ready for it, and if you make the right choices, if you keep your car clean, if you assert your rights, even this situation is something that you can have a chance of driving away from safely. We've talked a lot about why you should refuse police searches, but here's the thing that keeps coming up. A lot of folks have pointed out that refusing a police search doesn't just make the cops disappear in a poof of smoke. And that's true, it doesn't. I mean, lots of difficult things can happen after you refuse a police search. So let's talk about what those things are. And one of the main points I want to get across here is that just because you're afraid of what might happen after you refuse a search, after you assert your rights, it's still your best move. And so that's important to understand. And I want to make it clear to everybody that I'm not clueless about all of the ways that this stuff can go wrong, because we get that response a lot. Like, are you out of your mind? If you assert your rights, the police are just going to do this or they're going to do that. We're very familiar with some of the things that they can do. And so let's talk about them and how your constitutional rights apply even in some of those worst case kind of scenarios. So let's get into it here. Say the cops pull you over for something kind of trivial, like an unsafe lane change, like sort of one of those catch-all kind of things, that the excuses that they use. But they're basically just profiling you. And soon enough, they're asking to search your car. And you say, "No, officer, I'm sorry, I'm not consenting to any searches." So now, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to search you or they aren't. First of all, obviously, if they don't search you, then hooray for you, you win. You get to drive home safely. And, this is actually a very real possibility. Officers really will back down in many cases because they simply don't have probable cause. And, not every cop is a corrupt scumbag who's going to make stuff up or give you a really hard time. So understand that this does happen. I mean, I get emails all the time from people who refused to search and then didn't get searched. The combination of properly asserting your constitutional rights and coming across as a calm, potentially innocent person, and the police officer actually lacking probable cause, not really having a valid reason that they can cite to search your vehicle. All of those three things can come together, and you really might not get searched. But as many of you have pointed out, things often just aren't nearly that easy. In many cases, when you refuse a police search, the officer will threaten you with all sorts of things, and this is where it gets really tough for you to hold your ground. Keep in mind that police can lie, so they might say they can impound your car, which is bull. They'll make all sorts of threats, but remember one thing. They're trying to get you to say that it's okay to search. See, if your consent didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so hard to get it. So now you're basically playing a high-stakes game with the officer. Their job is to make you say it's okay to search the car, and your job is not to say that that's okay, no matter how hard they pressure you. So it's a battle of wits, basically. And once you get into this situation, the next thing you need to do is ask if you're free to go. This is important because the officer not only needs to have a legal reason to search you, but they also need a legal reason to even hold you by the side of the road. And unless you say that you want to leave, then the law considers the encounter voluntary. So keep this in mind. For example, if you refuse a search and then the officer threatens to call in the drug-sniffing dogs, which is something that they'll do in many situations, the officer can legally call a dog anytime he wants, but the officer can't legally detain you without evidence. So if asking if you're free to go can provide legal protection against that dog sniff. So now let's talk about the worst case scenario. You've refused a search and you've asked if you're free to go. And you've done both of these things very politely, which is important. But they don't let you go and they do search you and you get arrested for something stupid like, say, fireworks. You still did the right things. You asserted your constitutional rights, and the circumstances of your arrest do matter in a court of law. I mean, honestly, it's actually even really common for charges to get dropped before you even go to court. If the magistrate looks at the case and realizes that it's not likely to hold up, that's a jurisdictional thing that varies from place to place. But I do hear about areas where sometimes the police are a little bit overzealous and make a lot of petty, marijuana arrests or things like that. And those cases don't always even result in actual criminal charges. But if you are charged, as will often be the case, then your lawyer has some really solid legal grounds on which to challenge the evidence against you. And this is really typical stuff. I mean, when, in any criminal case, one of the first things that happens is your lawyer would make a motion to suppress and challenge any evidence that that he or she feels was illegally obtained against you. And so evidence resulting from a search that you didn't consent to, evidence that was turned up during a prolonged detention when you'd asked if you were free to leave and they didn't actually turn out to have legal grounds to detain you. All of those things are eligible for suppression. And if you talk to any good criminal defense attorney, these kinds of hearings are things that they can win. They win this stuff. Not every time, but there's a system here. And so that's really why it's so important to understand how to assert these particular rights, even if you're convinced that the officer doesn't care about your rights, even if you're convinced that the officer is going to search you anyway. The point is that you have to create legal grounds on which to challenge the officer's conduct later on. And this can also apply to civil rights lawsuits, to other types of situations, if you're filing a complaint, all of these things. If you agree to be detained, if you agree to be searched, you can't challenge the officer's actions. And obviously, a police encounter can go wrong in any number of ways, and police do routinely violate people's rights in horrible ways and in all sorts of situations. So, I can't promise you a good outcome. I can't promise you some of the better outcomes that I've enumerated today. But I can tell you how to increase your odds of getting those best outcomes, and so that's really what this is about. So, please understand that the fear that your rights might be violated is all the more reason to know and assert those rights in any and every police encounter. So please keep that in mind, and please be safe out there. As always, all of our videos, including our very cool instructional videos, are available on YouTube as well. So thanks so much, and be safe, everyone.
Off 1, 2, what we supposed to do? Lock 'em up in cells while the system fails. System got me stressed, put it to the test. March around the block while my people locked. Left, right, something ain't right. Left, right, we gotta fight. Forward march to nowhere. Round we go, forward march to nowhere. Ain't got nothing to show. Forward march to nowhere. Ever real we go, forward march to nowhere. Ain't got nothing to show. Cell block full again, locking up more friends. Non-violent crimes, doing hard time. Politicians say this the only way, but the streets ain't clean, just more folks in green. Left, right, something ain't right. Left, right, we gotta fight. Forward march to nowhere. Round and round we go. Forward march to nowhere. Ain't got that tape to show. Forward march to nowhere. Money on the go. Forward march to nowhere. Ain't got nothing to show. System breaking down. Can't keep marching on. People rising up. Time to change the soul. War on our own blood ain't doing no good. Filling prison yards, playing prison guards. Money down the drain, People feel the pain. Time to end this fight. Make this wrong turn right. Left, right, left, right. Stupidity right. Left, right. Forgot to mind. Left, right. Something ain't right. Left, right. One last fight for a march to nowhere. Hey, round around we go. Hey, for a march to nowhere. Hey, ain't got nothing to show for a march to nowhere. Hey, round around we go. Hey, for a march to nowhere. Ain't got nothing to show. Sound on march to nowhere. Sound on got nowhere. Sound on march to nowhere. Till we change the rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, cannabis activist Rick Ringelspaugh.
Certain chemicals contained inside of the cannabis plant, called cannabinoids, might be the most powerful non-inhaled edible nutrients mankind will ever know. They may do for medicine what germ theory and antibiotics did, ushering in the next great advancement in human health and life expectancy. Cannabis was used as medicine for thousands of years and was even part of the U.S. pharmacopoeia from 1850 to 1942, at which point it was removed against the medical establishment's will and made illegal for all purposes based on racist fears and claims that its recreational use caused insanity and turned people into violent murderers and rapists. The public has known about the incredible medicinal qualities of cannabis for decades now and has fought to allow it nationally as a medicine. But the United States federal government has been extremely firm in its position, fighting lawsuit after lawsuit to keep cannabis in its highly restrictive category. The thing is, the Fed's official position on the matter explicitly describes smoking as the method of delivery to the body, which they claim to have zero medical value. Generally speaking, burning a substance, destroying most of it, and inhaling the smoke that's created isn't usually the most effective way to deliver nutrients to the body. Throughout time, the feds have never publicly acknowledged the possibility of eating cannabis cannabinoids as medicine. What's interesting about the stubborn stance of our leaders that cannabis has zero medical value is that they actually hold a U.S. patent on the use of cannabis cannabinoids for the treatment and prevention of ischemic, age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The feds have known about the disease-fighting potential of cannabis since at least 1974, when they discovered the cannabinoids inside of it to have cancer-fighting properties in mice. The National Cancer Institute, a federal agency, tested 4 common cannabis cannabinoids on mice with lung cancer and on lung cancer cells in test tubes. The cannabinoids were administered orally and ingested by the mice. 3 out of the 4 cannabinoids reduced the size of some tumors and slowed the progression of others, leading to a longer survival time than the untreated mice. The test tube cancer cells were also impaired by the cannabinoids. At that time, science had no explanation for why cannabinoids could show to be anti-cancerous. The pieces started to come together in 1988 when the first endogenous cannabinoid receptor, or endocannabinoid receptor, was found in the brain of a rat. Soon after, it was discovered that endocannabinoid receptors are replete throughout the mammalian body. They are in every bodily system: the brain, blood cells, internal organs, skin, and bones. These receptors are not unique only to mammals. Every living thing that has a backbone and a central nervous system has endocannabinoid receptors. In mammals, these receptors have been found to play a key role in many bodily functions. 2 distinct types of cannabinoid receptors have been identified, and a third type is suspected to exist. The 2 distinct types of receptors help control different parts of the body in different ways. The endocannabinoid receptors are in charge of turning up activity in certain parts of the body and turning it down in others, acting as regulators to keep bodily functions in check. Then in 1992, it was discovered that the body actually makes its own form of cannabinoids, called endocannabinoids, to feed the receptors and allow them to do their important oversight job. Eating foods with omega-3 fatty acids helps the production of endocannabinoids, which are then created on demand by the body to feed any receptor that needs stimulation. The endocannabinoid 2-AG is in mother's milk. Since discovering that endocannabinoid receptors impact upon so many bodily functions, scientists have been determined to experiment with the chemicals that affect them and explore their potential medical use. While there have only been 5 distinct types of cannabinoids identified to be made inside of the body, There have been 85 unique cannabinoids identified so far in cannabis. There are cannabinoids in some other plants, like echinacea, but nowhere near the quantity or potential medical quality of cannabis. But because the 85 cannabis cannabinoids are illegal to prescribe and prohibitively difficult to research for medical use in America, researchers have instead been forced to create artificial cannabis mocking drugs to attempt to stimulate the endocannabinoid receptors and manipulate their actions in a helpful way. The technical definition of a cannabinoid is any chemical that is capable of binding to and activating an endocannabinoid receptor. Cannabinoids made inside the body are endocannabinoids. Cannabinoids found in plants are phytocannabinoids, and the rest are made by scientists in a laboratory. These man-made cannabinoids don't suffer the same automatic illegal status as their natural counterparts. Synthetic cannabinoids that gain FDA approval are allowed to be marketed and sold on the highly expensive pharmaceutical market. Today, there are 2 such artificial cannabinoids that can legally be prescribed to Americans. In 1985, the drug Marinol was approved by the FDA and entered the market. It is prescribed to reduce nausea and vomiting in chemotherapy patients and increase appetite in AIDS and chemo patients. Also in 1985, the drug Sesamet was approved by the FDA, but it was not allowed to enter the market until 2006. It is prescribed to reduce nausea, vomiting, and neuropathic pain in chemo patients and increase appetite in AIDS patients. Both Marinol and Sesamet are modeled after the cannabis cannabinoid THC. The only other pharmaceutical cannabinoid drug in the world is the low-concentration oral spray Sativex. It entered the market in 2003 as a treatment for multiple sclerosis patients to alleviate their spasticity and neuropathic pain. Because Sativex contains the real cannabis cannabinoids THC and CBD, it is illegal in America, but available in other countries like Canada, England, Spain, and New Zealand. Although Marinol and Sesamet are the extent to which an American can legally use cannabinoids, the research shows that endocannabinoid receptors could be used to do more than just fight symptoms. A search on PubMed.gov for the word cannabinoid yields 15,243 results. These studies, most of which involve non-smoked cannabinoids, show that endocannabinoid receptors could be utilized to have a uniquely profound impact on what is currently known as health. This is nowhere near a complete list, but here are 25 studies showing different diseases and conditions that could be treated or even healed by exploiting the endocannabinoid system. Breast cancer, artificial cannabinoids reduce the size and spreading of tumors. Prostate cancer, an artificial cannabinoid reduced tumor growth. Lung cancer, artificial cannabinoids stopped the growth and spreading of tumors. Pancreas cancer, an artificial cannabinoid inhibited tumor growth. Liver cancer, THC and an artificial cannabinoid impaired cancer cells. Cervical cancer, an artificial cannabinoid killed cancer cells. Colon cancer, an artificial cannabinoid reduced cell growth and killed cancer cells. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma, an artificial cannabinoid reduced tumor size. Leukemia, THC reduced tumor size and killed tumor cells. Skin cancer, artificial cannabinoids reduced the growth of tumors. Cirrhosis, an artificial cannabinoid reduced fibrosis. Hepatitis, THC inhibited hepatitis. Alzheimer's, an artificial cannabinoid protected neurons and reduced cognitive impairment. Parkinson's, THCV could slow progression of PD. Multiple sclerosis, an artificial cannabinoid reduced neurological disability and progression of disease. Arthritis, artificial cannabinoids protected cartilage from degradation. Cardiac arrhythmia, anandamide and an artificial cannabinoid prevented arrhythmias. Insomnia, an endocannabinoid increased sleep. Sleep apnea, cannabinoids suppressed sleep-related apnea. Inflammatory bowel disease, artificial cannabinoids reduced inflammation. Depression, endocannabinoids may treat depression and anxiety. Post-traumatic stress disorder, an artificial cannabinoid could help control nightmares. HIV, cannabinoids inhibited TAT. Osteoporosis, an artificial cannabinoid increased bone mass and protected against bone loss. Nicotine addiction, an artificial cannabinoid could help smokers quit smoking. The bulk of trials that do move on to humans are those that show potential to control symptoms. For some reason, almost no experiments that show potential to actually cure disease move on to humans. Interestingly enough, in all of history, there hasn't been one study done testing the curative effect of ingested cannabis cannabinoids on humans. The only study on humans testing the disease-fighting properties of non-smoked cannabis cannabinoids took place in Spain in 2006. They took the lone cannabis chemical THC and directly injected it into malignant brain tumors of patients. As suspected, it had a cancer-fighting reaction in some of the patients' tumors, and those patients lived much longer than expected. But since then, no more clinical trials of this nature have been performed on humans. Despite the mountains of research showing the disease-fighting potential of cannabinoids, both artificial cannabinoids available to sick Americans are modeled after the same cannabis chemical, and all they do is alleviate a few symptoms. In 2007, using a new method to target the endocannabinoid receptors, the French pharmaceutical company Sanofi-Aventis came close to bringing America its next cannabinoid drug. They theorized that because CB1 receptors stimulate appetite, shutting those receptors down could help reduce appetite and help people lose weight. They didn't know exactly which CB1 receptors controlled appetite, so they made a drug that simply blocked as many CB1 receptors as possible. Their drug, called Acomplia, made it all the way to an FDA Phase 3 trial. Patients were indeed showing signs of reduced appetite. The drug also showed potential uses for nicotine addiction and metabolic disorders, but the FDA stopped the trial when some patients formed extreme anxiety and depression and attempted suicide. Patients with a history of depression weren't allowed in the study. Although Acomplia was not approved in the US, it was approved in Europe, and it was available in 56 countries by 2008. It quickly became clear, however, that its negative effects outweighed its positives, and it was pulled from the market by the end of the year. Other pharmaceutical companies like Merck and Pfizer were in pre-production stages with their own versions of weight loss CB1 blockers, but these programs were not fully carried out because of the failure of Acomplia. What Acomplia did is show clearly that if at least certain CB1 receptors do not receive endocannabinoids, then the body cannot function normally. Plain and simple, cannabinoid receptors are a part of the body and they need to be fed. In today's world, due to one or a combination of certain factors such as age, weight, diet, lack of diet, free radicals, and environmental toxins, for some people there could be a problem somewhere in the line of producing, transporting, and receiving all of the endocannabinoids needed to keep their receptors happy, thus directly impacting proper function in specific parts of the body. Over time, this could lead to a condition in the body similar to avitaminosis. Avitaminosis is any disease caused by a chronic or long-term vitamin deficiency. It's already known that suffocating certain CB1 receptors for a short time increases the chances of depression. Considering the multitude of bodily functions the CB1 and CB2 receptors control as a whole, who knows how many other conditions could be caused by a lack of nourishment in the receptors. Vitamins were only discovered because they realized that when people ate certain plants, they didn't get certain diseases. The cure for the diseases was as simple as eating those plants with nutrients that nature intended for the body, and as long as they ate those nutrients regularly, then the diseases wouldn't ever develop. The chemicals in cannabis, meaning both hemp and marijuana, when they are fresh, raw, and unheated, are not psychoactive. They can't get you high. That means as long as you eat or juice it in its natural state, cannabis is just another vegetable. Most modern pharmaceutical drugs focus only on a small, concentrated part of the body and work to shut it down. It's possible that when ingested properly, at least one of the 85 natural cannabis cannabinoids could safely fill the role of the endocannabinoids around the entire body, tapping into a natural, built-in system to help restore normal order to areas of the body that need it in a way that has never been intentionally utilized in all of known human history. But because it's never been officially tested, we don't know. There are a lot of people out there who are claiming that ingested cannabis cannabinoids have cured their illnesses, but their accounts are only anecdotal. Whether ingesting cannabis cannabinoids fights deficiency in the body, provides an incredible boost to health, or does nothing at all, we deserve to know. The only way the government will do anything is if enough people speak out. The world can't afford to ignore cannabis any longer.
That is absolutely true. The world can no longer continue to ignore the medical benefits of cannabis. And the longer they do, the more we suffer. And we're going to take a musical break. And this next song is about how people have suffered due to the horrible lies that have been perpetuated about cannabis since 1937, how our big governments and our big pharmaceutical companies and our big business has been telling the globe, the entire global population, that there are no medical benefits to cannabis, that cannabis is a horrible plant and there's nothing of real benefit to the human body. And we have discovered over the past decade or two that there is a lot of benefit to the human body. And had our government and big business and big pharma not lied to us, many people would have had longer lives. many people would have had better lives because they wouldn't be suffering and they wouldn't have suffered so much before they passed away. And so, from my point of view, that's just a horrible injustice. This next song I wrote in memory and in tribute to that. It's for all the people who died too soon and have suffered too much because of all the lies that were told over the past several years about this plant. And it's called Lies That Kill, here at Time for Hemp.
Watch the color leave their face. We were praying for a mercy that the pain would not erase. We were told what was allowed, what was dangerous, what was wrong. But the truth was in the shadows, buried deep and kept too long. We lit candles in the kitchen, whispered hope into the air. We were begging for a moment where the hurt was not so unfair. And the years kept all their secrets while the suffering stayed still. A century of silence built on lies that break, not heal. Lies that kill. They stole our time, they drew the lines we couldn't cross. Lies that kill. They dimmed our lights and left us counting every loss. We deserve the truth, we always will. We rise as one against the lies that kill. We were daughters, we were brothers, we were lovers, we were friends. We stood helpless in the doorway as the fight outlasted them. We were told to trust the voices that were guarding every gate, but the ones who held the power never carried all the weight. We saw comfort in a plect that they painted as a crime. We saw hope inside a leaf they locked away for far too long a time. And the grief became a fire, and the fire became our will. Just beat for every soul who bore the cost of lies that kill. Lies that kill. They stole our time, they drew the lines we couldn't cross. Lies that kill. They dimmed our lights and left us counting every loss. We deserve the truth, we always will. We rise as one against the lies that kill. We're the voices of the families, we're the ones who still remain. We're the echoes of the fighters who push through the fear and pain. We're the ones who learned too late what compassion could fulfill, and we won't let silence write more lies that kill. Now the truth is in the open, and the world begins to see. We're the ones who bear the stories of what hope was meant to be. Let the future hear us clearly. Let the past no longer chill. No more stolen hope. No more lies that kill. Lies that kill. They stole our time, and now our voices break the wall. Lies that kill. We rise as one for every name we stand for all. We deserve the truth, we always will. And we won't go quiet about the lies
Well, I do want to thank you for tuning in to the big broadcast today. I am Casper Leitch, your host of Time for Hemp. Don't forget, if you visit timeforhemp.news, you can find all kinds of free downloads to share with your friends and to add to your playlist that you can listen to on the go. And do make it a point to visit our social sites. We're on BitChute, we're on Rumble, we're on iHeart, we're on iTunes, we're all over the internet. Anywhere there's sound to be found, we're around making sound, telling the whole world how important it is to take time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for him. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Throughout Earth history, hemp has been used, no mystery. Hemp was legal to pay your taxes for more than a century. Check your faxes. The founding fathers make sense to me. It's time to grow hemp legally. Think of all its uses. It's money that's well spent right now. No excuses. It's time for hemp. Sustainable green industry, that's our intent. A better place this world will be. It's time for hemp. Fuel and food and clothes and soap, housing, cars. Yeah, cars, no joke. Henry Ford built a car out of hemp. It's time for us to do it again. People be employed with balanced farming as it's meant right now. It's time hemp. Hemp is a true necessity for the wealth and protection of this country. Thomas Jefferson spoke those words. He knew the value of these herds. It's time to lift the hemp ban. It's time to make a strong stand. Yes, we can, I know we can. We can make a difference, yes, we can. Just like birds of a feather, we can work together and lift the hemp ban. Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation.